Okay.
And recording starts. Oh no, you just press it once, don't press it multiple times.
Yeah, I just pressed once.
Okay, you'll notice that recording also started at the same time.
Yeah.
When you're stopping the stream, which you should only do at the end of the game or lightning delay, or even a lightning delay, don't worry, just blah blah blah.
Day one of the 2022 Canadian Ultimate Championships in the juniors division. We got junior women's coming at you. A BC regional final rematch between Vortex, who just made the overthrow turnover there in white, taking on Eclipse in dark. The 1 and 5 seeds going at it. Theo Wan here, Clayton Howlett, Ben Hubner on the 1s and 2s, producing the game for us. Clay, what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
I'm looking forward to the energy in this matchup. There's a little bit of a grudge, you could say, between these two teams. They often face each other in their regional tournaments. When they arrive at nationals, they often end up being the 1-2 matchup regionally, and then see each other's perhaps in quarters or semis. In 2019, Vortex knocked Eclipse out of contention in the playoff bracket. I imagine that is very difficult for some Eclipse members to remember. Very awesome for some Vortex members to remember, and I think that'll be on the brain in this match.
And if you're looking at Eclipse, the team in dark, the #1 overall seed in this tournament, boasting 6 players that went to Poland for Team Canada, bring home a bronze medal on the women's side. So a lot of firepower for Eclipse. And Vortex having a couple of firepower players of their own that we're going to see in Brillantis and Credo.
Theo, cloudy day here in Brampton. It's pretty windy. Not at all real surprised to see Vortex come down in a zone look while Eclipse is marching it up the field. A little bit of confusion by Vortex there, but then going right back in to that cup defense. But looks like Vortex is melting into a person right now.
Lee with the disc here for Eclipse, needs some options, finds a reset over to Escobar. Slow and patient offense on this second possession here from Eclipse, and now a drop leads to Vortex, another opportunity here. It's an offensive point for the team in white.
Vortex did a great job that point of poaching in the lanes. We're also seeing a zone defense by Eclipse here. The mids right now not quite finding where those gaps are, and with a fairly loose cup, there's getting some through, but that big throw to an open receiver around the zone is just a little bit too far for Mikado. Will result in a turnover. Vortex going back into a zone look. I'm finding their cup to be a little bit tighter, but once again, these players right now, not both teams on offense, finding holes in the cup, are willing to go over top despite the condition, but there's another hole to get the disc around on a swing and then through the middle, so that the loose cup from both teams giving shots here up the middle. Eclipse now with the disc halfway down the field. Vortex melting into a person defense. Eclipse falling into a vertical offense. Eclipse showing some patience, finding some undercuts out of the stack.
Looking for that open receiver, but that one falls into the turf. So 3 turnovers apiece right now. It's getting windy. The conditions are very different from the senior division. We were both had the privilege to be able to call a lot of those games, and the conditions were quite different.
Most of the time, but yes, they were quite different. We found that it was very, very hot for the majority of the tournament. However, we did find at this field, and this was interesting, we're up here on the scaffolding, Theo. We're in our shelter, in our tent, and we're finding it pretty windy, and it is in fact windier down on the field. And there a block or just a throw that gets caught up in the wind right on the goal line by Vortex, and Eclipse now on the doorstep.
Looking for that break. Miju Lee with the disc on the force side. Escobar going up line. Needs some help. It's going to find a receiver and get the score for Eclipse, but there's some discussion here. And it's going to be ruled a goal. Eclipse gets on the board first with a break.
Sometimes contact or a question of the rules results in a quick discussion, but comes out with no effect once everyone's on the same page. Part of equality of the self-officiated game of Ultimate. You see Coach Guo calling a line. Guo with a wealth of experience playing high-level Ultimate.
And Edward Guo also going to be flanked by other coaching staff members and Mio Shiriawa, who also played with Red Flag with Edward Guo at the World Ultimate Club Championships in Cincinnati not too long ago, coming down with the silver medal, losing a mixtape in the final, and also another player's played for Team Canada in Victoria Lamb, rounding out that coaching staff. So you got strong coaches who also have that playing experience, been there, done that, and that's going to really bode well for Eclipse success throughout this tournament as they are chasing a title.
Now, Theo, that was a break for Eclipse, was it not? So it was. So I am interested to see how our junior division differs from our senior division. I would say in some of the games we were able to watch on our own, or some of the games we streamed, we did see, as G. Lee was saying, it was always a game of runs, but we also saw those runs change the energy and dynamics of the teams on the sideline and even on the field. And now to be curious, is juniors are typically very loud, have lots of cheers, very cohesive, as they're really driven by their coaching staff to stay in the game. A miscue on the pull as no one fields that. The disc landing in the middle of Vortex's end zone.
That's going to allow Eclipse zone to set. Good saving grab, trying to get things moving for this Vortex side. An all British Columbia game to start things off, and so if you're in BC, we hope you're waking up, getting some breakfast, tea, or coffee, and enjoying this one. Short field's going to give Vortex another break, Eclipse a break opportunity here.
That pull making a huge difference right now. I've heard coaches always say what a difference a pull makes, and as no one picks it up, that zone getting set right away. A big throw over the top is pushed out of bounds by the wind, or perhaps just thrown a little too hard.
Yeah, very blady on that one from Liu.
Eclipse setting right back into his zone, making sure to play contained. So we're not seeing a mark come down immediately on the person with the disc. Not a bad idea sometimes in a zone defense. Make sure the next throw, the continue, is not available. Then have a player set the mark and begin the stall count, and just run some containment. The zone and pin, as you like to say, Theo.
Big huck going up from Vortex, and not really a receiver in sight. It's going to give Eclipse the field to work with, having to go the full 70 to get their second break.
Watching Vortex, it's looking to me that they are going to set a zone, or at the very least have a poach in the lanes right now. They do set a zone. It is very, very loose, really looking to stop the middle. But that allows for these ticky-tacky throws back and forth. But we're seeing hard person defense on the main handler reset, but it's so loose, Eclipse can just walk it up the field like this.
Wu was doing some give and go here, and Liu getting involved as well. Great catch under pressure from Cito Feng. And now Eclipse really on the move. Nice low flick, gets things done, filing Shaylin Wu for the score. Another break for the Eclipse side.
Now, it looks like the observers did signal goal, but then pulled it back, perhaps not seeing that there was indeed a call, or perhaps it just, the wind sometimes makes it hard to hear, but the observers waving that goal off as some of the players on both teams indicating that there is a call. It looks like the Vortex player on the mark, number 18, Jessa Romano, is signaling that there was a travel. And the observers indicating that Eclipse can contest, but Grace Liu just saying, what can she do? What did you see, number 18? But the disc will come back nevertheless on a travel call.
Eclipse keeping the disc here and possession on this break opportunity. A drop there from Wu, was supposed to be number 99 on our program, number 22 out there.
So Eclipse falls into a person defense right away on a fast turnover, or a fast break that is very difficult to set a zone D when the other team just starts running right away. So Eclipse opting to go with the person defense. Vortex able to put that out to space for number 8. Revy Briantes. No calls this time, Theo. Vortex gets themselves on the board.
That's a big turn of events there. Nemeno finding Brillantes, one of the players to watch for this Vortex side. And they were able to deal with the changing of the call there and tying up this game.
For those of you watching on the stream right now, our scoreboard is just getting updated. Looks like it's good to go now, but if you're not sure, the score is 1-1. We thought it was going to be 2-0, but Theo, that break by Eclipse getting waved off due to a travel on the deep throw. So Vortex coming together, listening for the line call, listening for strategy. Eclipse looking down at the other side, seem to have a pretty dedicated O-line, as most players are on the sideline discussing the last point, while the 7 players on are the only players out on their line.
And if you're Vortex, you got to feel pretty good right now. Could have gone down 2-0, giving up 2 breaks in a row, but now you have a chance to put out your defense, a zone defense, and try to get a break of your own.
Yeah, it was big. Actually, before, when the observers signaled that goal, it was interesting to look at the energy of Vortex's line, as the player who called the travel, Romano, I believe, did know what was going on and was trying to stop everybody else. But as her teammates seemed to have thought that they had gotten broken for the second time, they seemed quite deflated. So with that coming back and then getting the goal, it seems Vortex energy has been reignited here.
For some teams, you're going to feel the nerves a bit. You just had a game. Now you're getting on the live stream as well. Brillantes, who just scored the goal with a big pull here for Vortex. Will it stay in bounds? And lands in, so that pull is going to roll and allow Vortex defense to set here. Jung, been told by the observer to move it back, and look at the discipline from Eclipse to get their handlers back in there right away.
That's right, Theo, and Vortex still sticking with that rather loose cup, showing some holes in the middle, but those 2 defenders in the cup very, very active to stop any punches through right now, but Eclipse happy to try and move the disc as quick as possible and find a hole through the cup to get it back to the middle of the field.
Eng with the disc. Melt being called from Vortex, and for those who might not know, that just means they're going to go more or less in a person defense here. Receiver going deep. Throw's going to hang up and be scooped away. Marr gets the block for Vortex. Brillantes dialing up a backhand the other way, but the throw's going to settle and roll into the end zone.
That Huck, I like the choice. Wide open receiver, but that throw, somewhat of a laser. Pew pew, too far for a receiver in the wind. Not lifting that up, instead just letting it sail way too far. But Vortex comfortable getting right back in the zone, and they had time to do that.
Was told by one of their coaches earlier, James Katua, one of the assistant coaches, that they were going to have some zone looks. They have an FSU. They also have a cup. As this throw slices through to the break side, and Eclipse hoping to go on the run. But you know, Clay, both of these teams are going to try different defenses, having played in the regional final, that one getting a turn. But you know that they're going to try something different with the teams having seen each other previously.
Brillantes, after turning over that Huck, gets a big block and then gets the goal, the double happiness for Brillantes. You know she wants that. After throwing that laser, she spikes the disc. She gets lots of love from her teammates. A big goal, a big break, rather, for Vortex.
It's a turn of events here, folks. It could have been 2-0 Eclipse, and now it's swung the complete other way with Vortex taking the lead. 2-1 the scoreline. We thank you for tuning in. Want to thank I Am Ultimate's production of this game, and we also want to give a shout-out to our sponsors, Clay, of course. We got Discraft out here. We got the city of Brampton, which is where this tournament is located, the province of Ontario, and, of course, VC Ultimate. This is the VC Showcase Field. We got more streams coming at you, so stay tuned for that. 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 12:30 a.m. Eastern, and 2:30 p.m. Eastern. think I might have said 12:30 a.m., so 12:30 p.m., lunchtime. No midnight streams here.
You'll still find some fans that might cue that up, Theo, but tough one to sell. Forecast later for today, it's supposed to be a little wet or a lot wet. We shall see. If you followed our senior division, perhaps you were aware of how quickly things could take a turn, as they did on Saturday here at the Credit View Sandalwood Complex. But so far, so good. We are surrounded by clouds. There's some wind, but no rain. While it is windy, it's not knocking over and destroying up the dozen tents. So this pull by Vortex gets caught in the wind. It, from my perspective, landing on the line. And indeed, it did land out, so Eclipse will center the disc, and they have the disc at exactly half field.
A lot of the same players on the field, it looks like, for Eclipse. Big hut going off. Little pull play action. It's going to work out. A one-throw score. Liu finds Danae Jan. Two Team Canada teammates link up for the score.
Well, Theo, as we say at practice, why bother scoring in 10 throws when you can score in one? That set play, a strike out of a split stack there, just going deep. Big reception for Eclipse. Big advantage off that pull, landing at half field and being able to center and set up in a play. While a pull that only goes to half field is not always a problem, landing out of bounds is a kind of a big deal when it's that short. Giving the offense time, only 35 yards outside of the goal line, giving the offense time to set up their play, having either underthrows or hucks well within range thanks to the field position. So that's a tough one for Vortex there. Like I said, the pull landing upfield, if you can get, midfield, if you can get a defense on and you have a short pull, not a big deal. But often when the disc is centered, it gives the offense a huge advantage to set up and get things done.
And for Vortex, you know, next time you might need a player back potentially, just to back if you know that they're going to run some of those huck pull plays. It was kind of a midfield huck there, and a lot of these stores, you know, they're going to be talented, going to be able to throw that sort of in whichever direction they want. So got to be aware on the defense as well.
So Eclipse coaches using all of the 90 seconds they can for their defense to give them some last-minute pointers or tidbits on strategy. That pull landing near the Brit mark, but inbounds, we see how quickly the Eclipse defense comes down in their zone.
Poon with the disc currently. Flipping over to this open side. Finds Credo. Want to see her continue to get involved, as noted, one of the big-time stars for this Vortex team. And this one going to hang up and almost caught on the second effort.
Credo seemed to get a little excited there, started to drive that offense, calling for the disc back, and she really was in the driver's seat, but perhaps pulling the trigger on that one throw to the middle a little too quick with the wind coming in her direction and pushing the disc up. Vortex, while it is a fast break to get on offense here for Eclipse, they elect to fall into their zone, seeing a lot of speed out of their zone. That throw floats over the top, but Eclipse heads up offense, able to field it.
Jan is back out there, had the disc, and receives it right now. You're going to see a lot of players doing double duty, I suspect, here, Clay. Both teams know the importance of this game. And the pool set up for this tournament a little bit different as well, with kind of a power pools at the top, with some of the big teams being seated together here and having to play each other early.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Theo. The short lines might be a good strategy for both teams right now, but maybe also want to keep some tricks, like you were saying, those different defensive looks, or perhaps some of the plays in their back pockets, as both being top seeds, we'll have to, well, likely that is, see each other again in this tournament after today. But I remember saying that in the senior tournament, Theo, and I was very wrong. So who knows? We'll see. But as the game remains tight, I'm sure we'll see some tight line calling.
Inside shot. Callahan waiting for the ruling. It is ruled that the player celebrating right there, Jamie Jung, making things happen for Eclipse. And if you're an Eclipse fan in the audience, you can have a celebratory donut or something as you cheer on your squad.
Theo, as they say at practice, why run a one-throw offense when you can run a no-throw offense? An awesome read by Jung. She had her back right to us. We're looking directly in line with the path she took to that disc. She saw that coming a mile away, locked in, and real good mental focus to do two things. And number one, that was catch your D's, it might pay off. And number two, just jumping, as she was outside of the end zone, just jumping up high at the end there before she caught it to sail into the end zone for Callahan. Looks like we have a timeout by Vortex. The observers are discussing. Both teams are in a big huddle, so we believe a timeout has been called by Vortex. Eclipse leading the game right now 3-2.
The team is going to get a quick break. We're going to do the same in the booth and be right back. Back on the VC Showcase field, Eclipse taking the lead 3-2 over their BC rivals in Vortex. Great spicy pool matchup, Pool A for you. And Vortex now receiving Theo on here with Clayton Howlett. Attempted grab for Vortex. Goes to the turf. Good effort there from Ha. But Liu now getting instructions from Edward Grohl, one of the coaches. Liu has to deal with the poach in the lane. Gonna go with the flick across the field like she did earlier in the contest, but this one gonna hit the turf.
If I put my coaching hat on, I'm probably from now on asking number 11, Grace Liu, to look a little bit earlier to her dump. There was a poach in the lane. That was a high stall count. And so both throwing around the poach and trying to force something with not much time left can be very difficult. And that poach in the lane means your reset is free. And her reset at that time was standing right next to her. So I'm probably telling her next time, take one look and then reset.
Good pressure from Shannon Wu, leading to that short field Vortex turnover. And Liu has the disc again, gonna put it out for a receiver, and observers taking a little while to announce the goal, which delays the celebration momentarily. But Ma will get on the board.
For those unsure why there's a little bit of silence after each pull, the observers make three signals when there's a goal. First, they will point at the ground to indicate that the disc has indeed been caught in the end zone. Then they bring their hands up to their shoulders and look at each other and look across the field, seeking any calls that have been made on the field. We saw one get brought back earlier. So, in fact, not working out earlier when they did that check, but they do that check for any calls on the field. And when they find none, they look at each other. Then they signal goal together with their hands up in the air. And while doing that, they do have to scan the field and look for any calls and ensure nothing is stopping the goal from coming back. So they encourage teams not to rush the field. In fact, teams can actually be penalized for rushing the field before a goal is signaled. So players doing a good job there on that dash line on the sideline of being quiet and waiting for that signal for the goal. So that's why our cheers are somewhat delayed for those not so familiar with observers.
And our calls as well. That's also part of it too. We don't want to rule a goal because we did earlier where I ruled a goal that ended up being taken back, and then Vortex went the other way. Vortex offensive line out here going to have to deal with another zone look from Eclipse. A couple fakes to move the mark. Good work from Vortex so far on this point.
More loose cups. I find it interesting that both teams are running a very loose cup. We see this one where the containment is there, but when I say loose, the players are very far away from each other.
Ha going deep, and good defensive effort there from Eclipse to take it away.
Vortex going straight into person defense, matching up with a check, playing one-on-one.
Lisa Zhang coming up with a block. Had 17 goals at the junior tournament. Keeping things moving with the flick upfield. And now this throw is going to pop and be snacked down by Vortex.
It's Danielle Ha with the D there. Good job. That wasn't her check. She followed her check deep first, who received the disc, but then Ha, seeing that there was another threat, just kept on running and made the play. So good second effort there by Ha to get the disc back for Vortex. Eclipse's zone now on the sideline tightening up, taking away those holes in the middle that I've been remarking earlier. And it really pays off there with the big block from number 19, Georgia Smith.
Georgia Smith reaching out with the right hand, coming down with the block as Miju Lee picking up for Eclipse. They're trying to get their third straight point. Lee looking for Smith and just a little behind there.
That throw with the OI edge getting caught in the wind and blown to the side a little bit, so it ends up behind. But Eclipse with another great read. Clairvoyance.
Before you can even catch your breath, your Escobar going to throw in the score to Solana Wong, and it's been back and forth action. We expect nothing less in the juniors divisions. Exciting for you in the crowd. And now Eclipse getting a bit of a lead here after Vortex was up 2-1.
Yeah, you see Coach KP for Vortex right now, or I'm sure I can see Coach KP from Vortex right now holding up her fingers, trying to get everybody on the field to make eye contact with her, keep their heads up. She's doing a great job of keeping everybody engaged. As Theo, as you know, when your team's down, you call a timeout and then proceed to get scored on. The energy is really sucked out of you. You feel quite demoralized. So Vortex, unfortunately, not holding on after calling that timeout, getting broken. That can be a real tough one, tough pill to swallow, as they say, for Vortex.
Micah Padawan and mentioned James Katua as well, part of that coaching staff, and that's something that throughout each stream, I know viewers are going to hear this a lot. We're going to give a big thanks to the coaches. Not just the coaches, but also the parents that have coming from BC, or we know there's teams from Newfoundland and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, lots of different places. And for them to come and make the trip, support their kids in this game, that's going to be really exciting for the development of Ultimate here in this country.
Absolutely. Without that support, it'd be really difficult to have an event like this, being around Ultimate for a long time and watching the junior division go from something small to something huge and often possibly even more hype than our senior divisions.
The jersey trades in juniors are definitely more hype. I will give that for sure, because they love the trades. And in Ontario, you'll see a lot of BC jerseys out there and vice versa, teams wanting to get some trades. And I do see an out call, and from my perspective as well as Credo threw that, definitely threw it from being on the line. So the closer observer ruling that out of bounds.
You say ruling that, and this is interesting, because sometimes perhaps I have to do some homework here, Theo, but I didn't actually expect an active in-out call from the observers. But we just saw one. So it seems that our observers are making active in and out calls. That pass fielded by Vortex there, she landed, her first point of contact was on the line. The line in Ultimate, the sideline, is deemed out of bounds.
Liu holding onto the disc for a little while here, not looking for a dump, eventually gets one here, and they're still stuck on this closed sideline. Wu finds Liu, who gets things going. Melt being called, you hear from the sidelines. But there is a call on the field and a travel, and we don't have the benefit of instant replay for this call, but I'm going to say that looked like a travel if it was called on Liu. Liu had thrown and gone before The pivot was set there, it looked like, from my perspective.
Yeah, I saw that too. I've actually seen that a few times. This point, the players finding their open receiver. I mean, it is a great idea when you're a handler to get your momentum going with your non-pivot foot as you throw. It gives you that extra separation and step on your player. But the travel called, I totally agree with this from Vortex right now. When you're watching for it, it is that one particularly was obvious, but I'm sure will remain unfazed. And it's actually Shaylin Wu, excuse me. But I'm sure Eclipse will remain unfazed.
Cito Fung continued things over to Jan. Jan flips it in for the score. Back to Zito Fung, who gets the goal. And it's another break for the Eclipse side. They're feeling it right now.
Eclipse showing excellent tic-tac-toe offense. Short throws to just work it through the zone. Throwing a lot of fakes. And I actually need to talk about this. And I'm almost mad at myself that I've forgotten about this. But you see Eclipse, they're getting the disc, looking for their first option, throwing a fake towards it. It's causing the zone, the cup that is, to move around or collapse or extend or back up and form out other holes, and after that fake, taking the second option. That also indicates that Eclipse is taking their time. They're not panicking in the zone. They're not trying to punch it up the middle or to the sidelines too quickly, as we did see earlier in the game. Right now, it's look for one option. If it's there, make a quick, snappy throw. But otherwise, throw fake and then make something a little bit easier as you put those defenders on their back feet. So really excellent zone offense, that point by Eclipse.
And you mentioned your coaching hat earlier, Clay, so I'm going to give it a chance again to do that. Vortex, what do they need to change offensively right now? We've seen them broken a few times. I'm seeing similar players out on their offensive line as well. So what are some changes that they need to make?
I'd like to see some dominator action, personally. So what that means is a dominator, tournament ultimate, a lot of quick handler movement while you tend to ignore your downfield receivers a little bit. Vortex's game has really been spreading out their handlers to deal with the zone and trying to make the zone move back and forth. But that separation is leading to throws that are getting caught in the wind, or receivers having to work hard, or giving time for Eclipse to catch up to the disc and try and make a play while it's in the air. And here we see another throw that is just not quite on the mark because it was a little bit longer. Shorten up those throws a little bit. Let your handlers work together and do some give-goes to move it down the field.
Velasquez on the mark. Big layout from Eclipse. Ing going full extension there. And now waiting for a reset, finds Lee. Had a defender coming through, but poised and collected. Seeing that from the talented throwers from Eclipse. Lots of bunching up on this close side here. And Lee gonna have to air this one out. And almost caught, but a tough throw for Kang to make a grab on.
Interesting to see that Eclipse could not quite get an offensive set in the end zone there. Perhaps they have a different look than I'm not used to, but it seemed rather jumbled, and Vortex took advantage of that, almost putting a cup around the receiver while playing person defense on the players downfield. Not sure if there was just some desperation, everyone trying to be the open receiver for the thrower, trying to be the hero or the rescuer. But once again, and this is what I mean, look how much space there is between the Vortex handlers right now. Get in there. Unless you can throw great break throws like that. I take it back.
Credo going to keep things moving with Velasquez. Brillantes calling for a deep. Right now covered by a deep defender. Velasquez going to go slicing through inside the cup. Great movement there, finds Ha. And Velasquez, Ha, and Credo going to work right now. And now the throw going on for Brillantes, but it's taken away. Defense there from Eclipse. Zhang getting in there. Then the throwaway is going to give now Vortex an opportunity. You see their players telling them to settle down a little bit.
That's right. And Velasquez doing a lot of work. But
Credo
lots of options for Vortex.
Brillantes almost made the grab there.
Yeah, I've enjoyed Velasquez's point. She's doing a lot of work in the zone offense there, but in their end zone set, Vortex willing to use everyone. That throw just a little too high. But Vortex elects to drop into the person defense.
Lee finds a teammate there in Zhang, just outside the end zone. Receiving it back to Lee here as this is their third opportunity on this break point, or this point here. Chance for a break, up 6-2 so far, as there is a call.
So Miju Lee communicating to her defender that it is a fast count. On a fast count call, that is, you're counting stalls too quickly. It does have to be in sync with what would be the second ticks on a clock. And after 2 fast count calls, there's a violation, so that stops play.
Kang finds a safety valve there. Aang coming in underneath. Stall down call is going to possibly bring things back.
Yeah, we see players back at where that first throw after that fast count stoppage happened with Miju Lee. The Vortex defenders tapping on their head, and that indicates a stall down, getting 10 stall counts off, which does result in a turnover. As Lee and her defender discuss it, it seems that the count was too fast, so the stall count will return to 8 if it was contested.
Throw's gonna go up, and good effort from Credo. Gonna come up empty. This throw up for Zhang. And it's gonna be reeled in. Excuse me, that's Catherine Kang bringing down the score for Eclipse, and it's 7-2.
Kang had lots of time to think about that one. She got a great read on the disc, and when just before she had to look one more time to keep her eyes on it, she took a quick glance down to see where her feet were, jumped up and sailed into the end zone. We see the second timeout call by Vortex. Sometimes in tournaments, teams get at least one timeout per half, and they may have a floater, which they can elect to use in the first or second half, or sometimes 2 per half. Theo, I mentioned I need to do my homework earlier. I'm not actually sure which one we're dealing with today, but
I believe it's 2 timeouts per half. We saw that in the senior division as well. So we're going to take a break, as do the 2 teams, and we'll be right back. We thank you for tuning in to I Am Ultimate's coverage of the 2022 Canadian Ultimate Championships. You're watching the junior division right now, women's. A game between Eclipse in the dark jerseys out of BC, taking on another BC squad in Vortex. Theo Wan on the mic along with Clayton Howlett. Ben Hubner, our producer, want to thank him for helping us out as well. Eclipse taking a 7-2 lead and looking to take half here and going to start on offense as well. They've been really strong here, taking advantage of some turnovers.
absolutely showing a really chilly offense that they didn't demonstrate in the first 2-3 points of the game, but now on offense really taking their time and taking the options that are there, throwing lots of fakes, and keeping that cup, which is forcing lots of turnovers like that. Vortex being forced to make lots of throws that need to go the distance. And Theo, I've been harping on it, but I want to see a lot more opportunities for short throws, some quick tic-tac-toe, some dishes from Vortex right now, as they keep making the same kinds of turnovers.
Inside shot from Liu. We'll find Wu for the score, and Eclipse going to take half. Vortex had that 2-1 lead, but Eclipse really pouring it on and showing their might. And a lot of those players, they have some Team Canada players, but they're getting efforts from across the board here, and it just speaks to the development of the program and for both teams as we go into half. Continuing this development, we're going to talk more about that, about how these junior programs continue to feed the top teams here in Canada. But we're going to take a break right now and be right back. You're watching second half action in the junior women's division at the 2022 Canadian Ultimate Championships. Vortex in white pulling right to left on your screen, Eclipse in dark. Both teams from the great province of British Columbia going to battle here in this Pool A matchup. Eclipse, the number 1 seed, taking on Vortex, the number 5 seed. Theo Wan here with Clayton Howlett, Ben Humida, our producer. We thank you for joining us as Eclipse took a big lead there in the first half.
That's right, took a big lead and also started the game on defense. But I was going to remark on Eclipse's patient offense there, but a quick over-the-top scoober floats for too long, and Vortex able to have a break chance right off the hop.
That throw is going to sail over 4 players' heads. Credo has thrown a lot, going to get a lot of mileage for this team. Brillantes not on the field right now for Vortex. Has been also getting a lot of time out there on offense. Big scoop up by Jan on this offensive point for Eclipse. And throw maybe coming in too hot there for Cito Fung. Bounces off the hands.
Eclipse seems to set up in a zone, at the very least poaching in the middle to continue to force swing throws like that one you just saw floating over the top of the intended receiver. We've seen so much of that from Vortex's offense today. The distance throws, not quite accurate enough. And it's really hurt them in the first half. And Eclipse with that chilly offense in their end zone set, just marching it in. That was Danae Jan with the goal. She's been a presence in this game, her second goal of the game. Looks like she'll be crowned with the ceremonial flamingo.
This is one thing I love about Ultimate, especially Juniors Ultimate. They got the fun stuff, the weird stuff, the wacky stuff. You got flamingos. You saw in the seniors tournament team with noodles. You got lots of that fun stuff. So we want to see more of that on the stream, Clay. That's what we want.
We absolutely want to see it. Theo, I personally, there's some discussion in the Ultimate world. Perhaps you've been on a social media platform where there's been lots of talk about spikes and celebrations and what people like, what they want to see. I know if you've watched some of the more recent tournaments, it's come up.
World games.
Perhaps World Games, but you know, seeing a team have a fun celebration that celebrates your team, gets them fired up, gets them excited, a good alternative if you elect not to spike or don't want to spike and still finding a way to keep your team into the game. But I'll just put it out there, do what works for you. We want all Ultimate players to find the fire and the intensity that they need to have to give us fans up here and those of you watching some great content and excitement to watch.
Both teams coming off wins in the 8:30 time slot. All time slots we're going to talk about being Eastern as we're in Ontario. Vortex winning 15-4 over Toro, and then Eclipse taking down Titan out of Montreal, 15-2. So Vortex getting a real test here. The 3rd seed in the pool. Slicing shot works out for Mercado to receive it. And they're now on the run. Romano, doorstep for Vortex. Needs some help, flips it over, and there it is. Brillantes going to get a goal. Much needed for this Vortex side as they go and cheer on the field.
Vortex's offensive point was just great fundamentals. They've really struggled with the throws, needing to go to the distance, popping up too high, but this time putting that extra snap and spin on the throws where it allows Vortex to march the disc down the field, giving Brillantes her 3rd goal of the game. And the score being 9-3, she's doing all the receptions for Vortex. However, Theo, we should remark, and this is the bane of any handler in Ultimate, you can do a lot of work getting it 70 yards down the field, and we only track goals and assists. We don't track hockey assists, and unfortunately we don't have the infrastructure to track touches, but perhaps that's the dream one day, as we can track the touches of lots of the players that are quarterbacking these offenses and getting the disc 90% of the way so that teams can get in their red zone and punch it in.
See the Flamingo making its way over as we get a little wave from some of the Eclipse players on the stream saying hi to their parents, possibly back home. We know a lot of parents are here, and we gave that shout out earlier for the parents supporting these young athletes as they pursue their dreams. A lot of them wanting to play for Team Canada and club teams like Vancouver Traffic, or now the second team out there in Drift, and also some mixed teams, Red Flag being one of them. And you know some players are going to have come from that program and making their way there.
Yeah, it's great to see too. I mean, for some of these teams, the travel time for those supporters to come out is huge, the expense, but still making it happen so that all of our junior tournaments can have a strong showing from all regions.
And the tricky part with this tournament, Clay, is with less junior tournaments that bring in teams from around the country, you're not going to get that interconnectivity. So you're not going to know, is the best team from this city going to match up with the best team from this city?
That's a really good point, Theo. I mean, it's good that there's lots of big Ultimate fans and Ultimate nerds out there that put in the work, perhaps on their websites or podcasts, to track these things and give us predictions of knowing what could possibly happen. So, Theo, if you know anyone like that, we always want to follow them and check out the work they do to give us indications of what we're going to have. We did know this match coming in, we would have a tight kind of energy matchup between these two teams, as they have each had finals appearances. And this game, though, just Vortex unable to really lock in the fundamentals here when faced with the zone in these conditions, and having to find throws like that, which are really difficult to make. So Eclipse now just 2 yards outside of the end zone, showing that patience.
Woo, the lefty going just a little bit too high for the intended target in Ma. And as you say these things too, it's a great opportunity for these players to learn, right? We talk a lot about going for the gold, which of course these teams are, but for a lot of these players, they're going to have more Ultimate in their career. So these games are going to be great learning opportunities for them to continue to get better. And facing a zone with the wind, that's something that all Ultimate players should be good at, because that's something that you're going to face. You never know what conditions you get at a tournament.
Absolutely. While it can be intimidating, it can be difficult. It's definitely a skill that we all need to hone, as the wind won't be going anywhere anytime soon. And as I say that, the wind keeps that disc up long enough for Vortex to run onto it. A big defensive play.
Having the disc stuck on the sideline was difficult, so that inside shot was a great move. And you talk about that fundamental zone offense, that's part of that, being able to slice through and get an inside shot to then change the dimensions of the field. Eclipse working here on this offensive point, and throw just a tad too far.
Yeah, we see Eclipse there signaling to their teammates, chill out. I'm sure Vortex is doing the same. Both teams playing with lots of urgency right now, and just putting the disc a little too high, a little too far. Just take a breath, chill it out. Seeing a reset, I like to see that. I want to see some more handlers closer to the thrower, make it a little bit easier, especially when in the end zone. Perhaps crash the cup, perhaps run behind.
Tip disc that gets knocked down, and for Eclipse, they were changing their mark whichever side they were on, so they weren't forcing one particular direction. It was based on which side of the field the other team was on there. So a good little strategy from the coaching staff as they find a score for the hold. Matty E getting on the board.
Helpful having observers these games, Theo. There's lots of lines on the field as we have our own Ultimate field dimensions drawn on top of a soccer pitch. The end zone in Ultimate just a tad longer than that of the 18-yard box, the goalie box in soccer. So the observers, very helpful right now to indicate that players are just getting their toes in, as we saw the Eclipse receiver there having good presence of mind of just to back her feet up and take a little shuffle backwards before making that catch. And it doesn't look like there's a call here. It just seeing a shift in the energy. Eclipse cheering and celebrating, but then kind of calming down as the lead in this game is a lot, 7 points, 10-3, and Vortex, I wouldn't say struggling to keep their energy up, but definitely not having that initiative, needing their coaches to lift them up right now, as after break after break after break. Haven't been on the board since Briante's score. The only player catching goals.
The only goal of the second half, and Briantes being the one to score for this Vortex side. We know it's going to be a long tournament, so teams are going to have a chance to fight back in. This is not them out of championship contention at all. So you do want to give some good habits built for your team. Interesting to note, though, that Vortex is electing to put a lot of their offensive players back out on the field. Briantes pointing and shooting, looking deep. Kang is there in defense, and her presence makes the disc kind of go to the ground there, making the receiver have to take a much larger arc or run to the disc there.
Yeah, we've seen King be big in the air this game a few times, so great player to have in the backfield. Vortex setting up in a zone.
Eclipse height as well seems to be playing a big role. They have some big cutter defenders and some handlers that are pretty tall, especially in this division. So that's going to be a big part of their success potentially as they're trying to get that national title. A block, we'll call it double block there from two Vortex players going around and going for the bookends. But unable to make it happen was Mercado. Good idea though, and Eclipse is still going to have to work it up the full 70.
Vortex has tightened up their zone a little bit, especially on the sideline, and it seems to be putting a lot more pressure on the Eclipse throwers, which I'm liking to see right now because I think that pressure this game, Eclipse definitely has put lots of pressure on the throws this game and generated lots of turnovers that way. Vortex now employing the same strategy and see if they can get another result here with that.
And we talked about zone earlier, and something you may have noted if you watch any of the U20s, the women's side in particular, there was a lot of zones from different European teams, and that's something that throwers here in Canada are going to have to continue to develop and get used to, is dealing with certain zone looks. So seeing it out here in the national championship with these young athletes is great. They can continue to grow and get better through that.
A little bit of blown coverage by Eclipse there, but luckily that throw not quite on the mark. Now Vortex, though, I mean, this point, doing a great job of locking Eclipse down. So we'll see how much energy this cup continues to employ. On these long points, it can be a lot.
Luckily, though, it's not the same humidity that we felt yesterday here. Brilliante is going to be credited with the block, getting out in the deep space. There's wind, but it's a little bit cooler, which I think is great for the athletes. A block deserves another right there, a run through from Kang, who was in the deep space, but then getting over in the unders.
Yeah, Kang showing her presence everywhere on the field today. A big under from her now.
We're just about an hour into game time here as Eclipse looking for another break, and Kang throwing the assist. Tiago, one of the observers, ruling it inbounds. Cito Fung gets the goal, second of this game.
Team Orange, the observers with those active in and out calls today. So helpful as we see in Ultimate, many teams that don't have observers, there is often a very long and arduous discussion, Theo, about where the foot landed. Players often pointing to divots or that single blade of grass that they touched first or the impact they made in the ground, but having these nice lines painted on the field and having Team Orange there to help us out, keeping the game moving right along on those really close ones, and then, giving credit to the players making those plays and keeping their toes in like that.
For both of these programs, they have a chance to continue to develop and chase that all-elusive championship. For Vortex, been told they're one of the oldest programs around, being established in 2005 there, back when it was actually only a single-gender division there, Clay.
That's right.
Or the two genders together, I should say.
Yes, that's right. Playing in a mixed format, the juniors were back in the day, and Vortex starting in that program, and then obviously, as if you've looked at the tournament roster or anything, just floating back into the single genders. Record for Vortex, pretty great. They've been in the top 4 of this tournament, never winning, but often, I should say, in the top 4 of this tournament. Came 3rd in 2019 over Wicked West from Ottawa, 4th in 2018 second in 2015 to Alpha, and second in 2013 to Wildcard. Alpha and Wildcard, though, I should point out, both BC teams. And actually,
the names kind of changed from year
the
to year.
names kind of
sometimes
changed,
there,
but
Clay.
you are looking at that team, Alpha and Wildcard, in dark here, now known as Eclipse. So these teams, a storied history between them.
Eclipse under their name, yet to get a title as well. Chance to punch in another break for the team in dark. And they do just that. Wong throwing the assist. Finds Ryan Yeung for the point as a 12-3 lead here for the Vancouver side. And you mentioned their loss to Vortex in quarters, right? Losing in 2019. Of course, a different team with the pandemic, and they came in second in 2018. And with the pandemic affecting things, this is the first juniors tournament we've seen since 2019. So for a lot of these players, they might have been playing on some of the lower squads and the development squads, and now being out here with the top team trying to make a run. So we want to credit all the coaches that have really kept these players playing during those adverse circumstances. There wasn't tournaments on the horizon. Even in 2021, when there was the Ultimate Canada Invitational, it was only for the senior teams. So the juniors didn't have a lot of action. I know regionally they tried to make things happen. BC trying to make a tournament. I know Wicked West, who's actually behind us right now playing, they'll be on the stream later. They also had some chance to play regional tournaments, but nothing nationally in 2021.
Yeah, we were speaking to a Vortex coaching member, Chris, earlier, who indicated that for a lot of teams he's found that this is in the process of rebuilding, not in the sense of perhaps big all-stars moving on, but finding the groove again, and building a program that will roll over every year and keep veterans teaching the new players the ropes and developing really all-stars that can lead the teams. But with the pandemic, the way it was, some of these teams are now having players that could be finished in juniors next year, or could just be starting out their junior career, entering with the same amount of play experience, perhaps not skill, but definitely experience played at tournaments, not afforded the opportunity to have been under this sort of pressure or energy in this event before.
And this is where those games, especially early in pool play, are going to give you a chance to be able to do that. Feel some of that pressure. Feel just, for them, I think they're all just happy to be here. We've gone around the complex here today, Clay, and you're noticing one thing, and that's just smiles.
Yeah.
Amped. They're amped.
Yeah, we were talking about in the senior stream too, it's good to be back. I mean, we're looking around at all the other fields right now. We have a great view up here, and we can watch 12 games happening right now, and just it's the atmosphere here for the players, no matter what, on the sidelines, the fans, the coaches. It just feels like we're back at this event that we love so much, and everybody's so pleased to be here. So Eclipse setting up a zone. The Vortex team, the handler, I believe that was Briantes, signaling that she will center the disc. Eclipse with, this is interesting. This is often called a rabbit wall, or in this case, as it's wrapping around, this is actually a 4-person cup. So putting a lot of pressure on the throwers, but Briantes quarterbacking things and then uncorks a huck. But with that edge in these conditions, putting that big OI backhand, that outside in backhand, keeping that inside edge pointing to the ground, that outside edge pointing up, the wind catching the flat space of the plastic, and quickly putting that throw off target.
Going to make things quite difficult for your receiver even, and we've talked about it at the senior championship as well. Certain throws, like a throw over a receiver's head, can be quite difficult. So you got to, as a thrower, try to make it as easy as possible. And coming through, Brillantes, another block, has had a couple this game and has been a bright spot for this Vortex team.
Absolutely. She has Vortex's 3 goals right now. Now she has a chance at an assist, giving her team a chance to set up.
Inside shot, caught on the second effort. Credo bringing it in, and that gets the sidelines fired up.
Yeah. Briantes doing a ton of work at that point. An excellent job of making the defensive play to get back her huck, and the great second effort there by Credo. After that throw just ended up a little bit behind her on the bobble and able to outstretch layout, bring it in. You see the Vortex girls, Theo, still fired up. Still fired up. I mean, they get the goal. That was a hold. But often in these games, we're worried that teams are going to let the score disparity get to them. And right now, Vortex showing great heart in that, yeah, we're down by 9 points, but we get an offensive hold. We're still going to celebrate. We're going to dance on the sideline. Coach KP leading them in a little dance there to get them fired up. Love to see it. These players still know it's early, Theo. We talked about the experience of the players too, and I wonder how much work the coaches are doing right now in explaining to their players, hey, it's day one, it's game 2, day 1 of pool play. We have the hardest game in our pool. We know this is the grudge match. Look at our history between them. Let's just keep our heads up. We're going to have more games. We're probably going to see this team later. Let's just keep up the energy.
Liu working things over to Jan. Just at midfield for this Eclipse side. You see Leo give a little head nod as a couple receivers go deep, Cito Fung being one of them. But now, Vortex in a person defense, a little bit of a change there, Clay, as Jan with the disc.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen Vortex stick with the zone most of the time, and it was working for them for a few points, but the score certainly indicates that playing a zone the whole game, perhaps not generating the turnovers you need. So Vortex making a change. I like to see that when a defense hasn't been working or getting the results you want, to throw something else at the other team.
Ing throwing it, finds a receiver. We'll see if it's ruled inbounds by Hansen, Sandra Hansen, one of the observers. It is indeed ruled a goal. Brielle Wong gets the catch.
Wong turned on the wheels that point, streaking up the sideline. Huge separation. And the assist throw there, not requiring any thought. As a receiver, Wong was wide open. So great demonstration of athleticism there by Eclipse, not shaken up by the different defensive look. So I'm thinking, Theo, though, if you're Vortex, perhaps you don't do anything that's too tricky right now on defense. Save something. If you have another defensive look, the score is 13-4. Time's ticking away as there's only 17 minutes left in this game. Perhaps you try and refine some of the defensive looks you've been playing this game, but I wouldn't show all the cards to Eclipse right now.
That's the sneaky coaching analysis we want on the stream, Clay, because there's a bit of gamesmanship in Ultimate. We've talked about timeout rules or different things like that. And one of them is also the strategies, right? You don't want to show them all the cards, but I will say that something I've noted from Vortex, as I see a couple of the players coming off, we saw some players like Brilliantis and Credo, we've talked about them a lot. They've done a lot of heavy lifting, but they've been on a lot of points, and with the scoreline the way it is, I think it might be beneficial perhaps to get some of the players that didn't see a lot of time early in the first half or here in the second and give them some experience, and also resting the big-time players for later.
I also think this is a time to give the depth of your roster the experience they'll need if you think you're going to see this team again in the tournament. That is to say, if Vortex is expecting to meet Eclipse in bracket play later, they'll need to make sure that all players can do the heavy lifting, as relying on the players that we've seen a lot playing this game and just the 7 hasn't worked out for them. So perhaps giving the rest of your roster a chance to see Eclipse, and that way meeting them again, it can be more of a whole team effort rather than relying on the top line. The wind picking up here a bit, Theo, as Eclipse sets up in their loose zone, and Vortex has not been punishing that. Eclipse is happy to allow them to make the long throws. That's where the turnovers are coming.
Something when they watch back the tape, something they might have to keep an eye out on is great grab there from Romano. And they're trying to work it to that far side of the field. That's something that Coach Clay here would want to see a little bit more of. And also noting Eclipse changing the mark at times, now with the short field to work with. First forcing flick, and as the disc got to the middle of the field, change it over to backhand.
Also really advantageous to containment. You're forcing in the direction where the defenders are. So we see Eclipse there. Their vertical offense in the end zone has been on point today. Lots of Chilio. I believe that's Jan catching the goal. And no call, so that puts Eclipse up 14-4. And thank you for the correction, Theo Smith with the goal. So Eclipse one away from taking this big pool play match. We see some of those top players, Theo. I'm just looking at Vortex right now go out on the field. It is interesting. You remarked that might be a good time to rest your players. I was saying might be a good time to give your depth the experience, but we're seeing, for example, Briantes and a lot of our other offensive players from Vortex that have been doing a lot of heavy lifting going back on, but maybe Coach KP and others are thinking, maybe I need to give my top line to some time to work things out against some adversity. So lots of different things that could be going on here. We up in the booth like to think that we have it right every time, because we do.
I mean, we got the power of the microphones. That is true.
Yeah, that's right. But lots of strategies that could be at play here. So
right now, if you're Guo, Lamb, and Sharia, while the coaching staff for Eclipse, you want to see this team end it on a break. Break to win. Get that confidence. You have a game later today against Toro. Break to win and continue to build on that. Big throw coming up, but Liu bats it. Gonna have to catch it and does not. Vortex able to get a goal on their end. Brillantes, a fourth marker.
Liu immediately keeling over, putting her hands on her knees, smiling, looking at her team as she gets marked down for the assist. I'll put it that way. So Liu with the assist, unfortunately for Eclipse. But she's smiling. She knows the mistake she made. If you're an ultimate player, the phrase "catch your D's" resonating in your brain right now. Perhaps you yourself, if an experienced ultimate player, are getting a few flashbacks from that play of when you've done the same, because we've all been there, Theo, as players. You make the defensive play, you put it up in the air, and you give the offense a second chance. So Eclipse, Vortex, that is, coming away with a lucky one there.
And it's interesting, too, because we talked about this previously where sometimes you can't catch your blocks if you're making a layout, but that one was a move where you could if you're Liu. Been great in the deep space along with Kang. Two players that have really done a great job for Eclipse. That one you just got to reach out a little extra inch to grab it instead of batting it away. It's always dangerous when a disc is open for grabs. You know some teams are going to come out flying and look for the disc.
Yeah. If the game was closer, that would be a huge momentum shift. But with Eclipse only being away from the win by 1 point right now, and not a lot of time left in this game. And on that topic, Theo, I'll just remind those of you, if you're familiar with the cap rules, these pool play games are hard capped. That is, we will play to a time, and when the horn goes, the game will be over. We can get into cap rules on the stream as they apply later in the tournament if we see some tight games come to them. But for those curious, hard cap and pool play and bracket play, it will only be the finals in soft cap.
Zhang was the second receiver there. Going to throw this one out. Finds Cito Fung for the score. And Eclipse is going to take this pool lay matchup, a rematch of the BC final. They'll take it 15-5. Don't go away. We got more streams coming at you. 45 minutes from now, we got the Eclipse Open team from BC take on Origine out of Quebec City in a spicy open matchup. At 2:30, we got Wicked West from Ottawa taking on the Masters of Flying Objects out of Winnipeg at 2:30 on the junior women's side. And then for junior open action, we have Ignite out of Ottawa taking on the aforementioned Mofo squad, this time in open at 4:30 Eastern as the Vortex team getting their dance on. We're just going to let them dance it off onto the stream.